New charges today in the murder of a Ferguson man who reported the rape of his own daughter. 3 family members stand indicted for the murder of Corey Warren, who was gunned down after refusing a bribe to drop charges in a sexual assault case. Our Megan Kernan is live outside the Ferguson Police Department, where prosecutors announced indictments just hours ago.
Corey Warren's best friend tells me he was the best person on earth and a great father. His family still hasn't come back home since the killing. And these 3 men are now charged, accused of working together to silence that father, murdering him, and then murdering their own hitman.
One of the most senseless acts of violence that I've reached and have seen this year.
Ferguson Police Chief Troy Doyle says Corey Warren's killing was calculated, cruel, and personal. On July 8th, officers say Corey Warren was shot through the glass door of his Ferguson home that you can still see 3 months later.
Stories like this is a reminder to me of why I have zero tolerance for Negro babble, blaming the white man, and any sort of black community nonsense. Now, this is a story that took place in Ferguson, the same place where idiot Negroes rioted 10 years ago over Michael Brown. And in Ferguson, a father had his teenage daughter raped by these 3 Negroes who are all related: LeVar Harmon, Anthony Young, and Anthony D. Young. And because the father didn't want to take their $12,000 bribe to not snitch or inform the authorities of them raping his daughter, they hired someone to murder him. And they murdered that father. And then they murdered the hitman that they hired that murdered that dad. And you'll get no big protest over this story. You'll get no mass media reporting about this story. You'll get no movies or TV miniseries dramatizing the story to make more people aware of it. No, this will be yet another story that comes and goes. And this is, again, over a father who had his daughter raped and wanted justice and refused to back down from criminal Negroes that tried to bribe him with $12,000. These stories going underreported and never outraged about is why I could give 2 shits about what niggas are complaining about ever when it comes to racial oppression, discrimination, or any other nonsense that they want to bring up. Because Negroes nationwide routinely ignore horrible stories like this. Because I'm sure they were of the mind of this no snitching culture where they truly expected this black father to remain silent despite the fact that, yeah, they raped his daughter. But again, what are all the things that you hear and see from Negroes? Promoting thuggery and criminal activity and criminal behavior, defending criminals by condemning mass incarceration, which, again, mass incarceration includes 99.9% of Negroes that are guilty of the crimes that they've been mass incarcerated for. And so this is the reality of what's happening day to day. Not stories like Ferguson, where law enforcers took down some 6'4", 18-year-old criminal that was made into a martyr that not only brought about destruction in various areas within Ferguson, but nationwide it helped spark the BLM bullshit, which has brought about domestic terrorism that's not only been supported by the Democratic Party, but the uniparty members within the Republican Party and mainstream media in general. I mean, a lot of the bullshit policies that exist stems from them using this incident to be even lighter on violent offenders based on so-called race. And even with this story, these bastards were still able to have a bond, $2 million across the board, but there should have been no bond. And you can guarantee, even if they find them guilty, they won't get the death penalty. Because even if they get life behind bars, that's money that the survivors of that father and his daughter, who was raped by them when she comes of age, they're paying to financially support them continuing to live behind bars for life. But again, you have liberal ideologues that believe rapists, among others, but in this case, rapists of teenage girls who then kills the father that dares report them to the authorities, they believe people like that deserve to live. You even have some liberals that will compare it to abortion. Oh, people on the right, conservatives, they're not pro-life because they believe in death penalty for criminals, which makes them hypocrites when it comes to abortion. Yes, liberals. I think Gavin Newsom was the one that made that comparison, but liberals in general do it, where they say killing criminals with the death penalty is the same as aborting a baby in the womb. Again, this is why I wish more and more people that claim to be conservative, that vote Republican, this is why I wish that these people come to the realization that there's no coexisting with liberals. And again, I can guarantee you everyone involved in this situation, the perpetrators, their families, the victims and their families, they all subscribe to the same political ideology of liberalism. This is why I say liberals don't even care about their own lives or the lives of their loved ones, let alone caring about yours if you're not liberal. So why would you want to exist amongst people like this if you have the option of not existing around them? Which is why you're seeing, more and more communities trying to form their own, counties and cities away from liberal rule. But again, this is a disturbing story that came up in my YouTube algorithm, and when I listened to the story about it, I just felt compelled to talk about it. And it's not only a reminder to me why I just have zero tolerance for any Negro babble complaining about any type of racism or oppression, but this is a video for anybody that watches my videos to understand what motivates me to always show no mercy or sympathy when it comes to Negroes and any of their complaints. You want to know why I make the comments that I make? Stories like this is why. Stories like this. And again, there's many stories like this that happen on a daily. Years ago, I did a video about, St. George Floyd's 4-year-old niece being shot. And I was talking about how no one talked about that. Oh, here's your opportunity. You love George Floyd so much. You want to romanticize him? Okay. His niece was 4 years old, or when she was 4 years old, she was shot. Talk about that then. Silence. Because, again, the shooter wasn't a cop or somebody white or a non-black in general. Which means when they do talk about stories that involves somebody white or a cop, it proves that they're not talking about it because they actually care. They're talking about it solely based on social, political narratives. See, this justifies me playing the victim of racial oppression and calling law enforcement a bad thing, because we have this story right here, see? So even when they highlight a truly horrible story where something that was racially motivated, even though it's rare, but when it does happen, or happen by the hands of a police officer, even when they highlight those instances, it's not sincere because they're only highlighting it for an agenda. Because on a daily basis, on a more regular basis, what's happening? It's situations like this that's happening. That's not by the hand of a cop or some white man or a MAGA hat voter. But yeah, man. It's very unfortunate that the death penalty doesn't exist nationwide for subhuman scum like this. People like this don't deserve to live.